We have breaking news out of Toronto. As confirmed by Jeff Passan, Vladimirr Guerrero Jr. has signed a historic 14-year, $500 million contract extension to remain a Blue Jay through his age 39 season. The deal locks Vladdy up through 2039. Oof. That contract is not going to age well. But what does this mean for the Mets? More specifically, what does this mean for Pete Alonso and the Mets? First off, let's give Vladdy his flowers. He's a fantastic player. I wouldn't quite call him a generational talent. He is definitely a marketable player. He is the face of the Blue Jays. He's a homegrown player. He's one of the faces of Major League Baseball. Absolutely. 100%. However, I strongly believe he's not that much better, if at all, than Pete Alonso. And I think if we look at their stats, and you look at their stats for their career, you'll see they're pretty comparative. While Vladimirr Guerrero Jr. is possibly the better overall player, as you can see, he has a higher career batting average of 288 to Alonso's 250. His on-base percentage is 363 versus Alonso's 340. He has a higher OPS, by a couple points. Alonso is the better slugger. He has the higher slugging, 516 to 498. He has more home runs and more RBIs, and he's a better fit for the Mets. He's a better complementary piece to Juan Soto, batting behind him, providing that support behind him, providing that protection behind him. And I don't believe the Mets should have went out and spent $500+ million on Vladdy if he made it to free agency anyway. So I'm glad he signed with the Blue Jays. I'm glad for the Blue Jays. They were able to retain a homegrown player. They finally got a player who accepted their money. They've been trying to make a big splash the last couple of years in the offseason. No one will take their money. They even offered Pete more money this past offseason, but he decided to come back to the Mets. So now that Vladimirr is completely out of the realm of possibility this offseason, we don't have to hear the narrative about the Mets going after him next offseason. And what do they do with Pete? Does Pete move to DH, etc., etc.? We can just focus on the Mets this season, and we can appreciate what we have in Pete Alonso. And Pete Alonso is off to a fantastic start. I think a big part of it is he doesn't have that weight on his shoulders of playing for a contract that he did last year. I think that weighed on him heavily. And he's playing free. And he has great plate discipline thus far in the season. The results are there. And I know that there are going to be some detractors that say, okay, well, you're looking at his career stats. But what about what he's done the last 3 years? Pete's been on the decline. Okay, fine. We can talk about that. So we take the 2022, 2023, and 2024 season and compare them for both Pete Alonso and Vladimirr Guerrero. We'll see that they played almost identical number of games. Pete played 476 to Vladdy's 475. Yes, Vladdy has more hits, therefore he has a higher batting average. So the batting average is 287 versus 243. Vladdy has a higher on-base percentage, 360 to Pete's 333. But again, Pete has a higher slugging. Only by a couple points, to be fair, but he has a higher slugging. He has more home runs and more RBIs. 120 home runs to Vladdy's 88. 337 RBIs to Vladdy's 294. Pete is the better power bat. Pete is the more potent run producer. We could even take the small sample size. I know that's what the Pete detractors are going to mention. It is a small sample size. But if you take this year, for example, Vladdy's had 11 games so far. Pete's only had 10. It's a long season. This is a very small sample size. I can't say that anymore. But look at the start that Pete's off to. he has 3 home runs, 11 RBIs. Vladdy has 0 home runs, 4 RBIs. So Vladdy has more hits, 12 to Pete's 11, but Pete's hits have been more impactful. He's batting .314. I don't expect the average to stay that high. It would be fantastic if Pete can have a breakout career year batting average wise. His prior career high was .271. I don't think it's reasonable to expect him to finish over 300. If he can finish anywhere .270 to .280, that is fantastic. If he can finish anywhere between .260 and .270, consider that a win. However, he's having great at-bats. He's taking walks. He's striking out less. I mean, he's off to a phenomenal start, and I anticipate it to continue through the year. Maybe not at this level, but Pete Alonso is the better fit for the Mets. I think that the Mets could reach out to him. They can talk about possibly ripping up the contract year, the option for next season, and offering him an extension. You know, maybe 4 years added on to this year, so make it a 5-year total at $30 million average, and then you have a $150 million contract over 5 years. Or, you know, maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe they want to give him 3 years and give him $35 million a year, you know, to shorten the contract. You can't tell me in the next 3 to 5 years that you think Vladimirr Guerrero is going to be that much better than Pete Alonso, that you have to commit an additional 9 to 10 years just to secure the player. I think Pete Alonso gives the Mets more flexibility. They have some young players coming up. It gives them the flexibility of not having a long-term contract. I'd rather the Mets go out there and make some moves from some positions that they desperately need. And what's a position of desperate need for the Mets? I would say having an ace. An ace under control. You know, and there is an ace out there, and, you know, there's a growing sense that he will be traded by the All-Star break. I know that the general manager of this team said they're not looking to trade him, and of course they would say that. We're only into, the second week of the season. And I'm talking, of course, about Sandy Alcantara from the Miami Marlins, who came off of Tommy John surgery. What he's shown so far is that he looks like his old self, which is a phenomenal pitcher. So, yes, this season he's probably going to be on a innings limit restriction. But the Mets, I think, are set up better than any other team to deal with that. The Mets can go to 6-man rotation. The Mets can skip some starts. The Mets can, you know, limit how deep in games he goes because our bullpen is so phenomenal. We have multiple relievers that can go extra innings. We can pair him with a Blackburn. We can pair him with, you know, whichever reliever that goes multiple innings where, you know, he only has to give us 5 and they'll, you know, give us 2, 3 or whatever it is. You know, and we can save the bullets to the end of the season, to the playoffs. And you know what? He's under contract for multiple seasons. It's not just about this year. And he has a reasonable contract. And the Mets also can rip up that contract and give him an extension. I wouldn't do that quite now. But, you know, possibly in the off season, next season they can do that. I mean, he's not due to be a free agent until 2028. That's his age 32 season. You know, at 31, 2027 is a club option for $21 million. It's not much. He's not making much money. Not for the level of production that he gives. So again, while Vladdy's $500 million contract is the headline, the real story here might be that it makes a Pete Alonso extension more possible with the Mets, and probably more urgent, that they just lock him down for a couple more years, solidify that spot in the lineup, that protection for Soto, and then swing big for a frontline starter. I mean, that's how you're going to build a contender that, you know, Steve Cohen is about winning a World Series, and those are the kind of moves that will help you win. So, what do you guys think? Do you agree that Pete is the better long-term value here? You know, and by long-term I mean in that same window, 4 to 5 years, as opposed to giving Guerrero a 14-year contract. I mean, would you trade for Alcantara? I mean, who would you give up for him? Are there any minor leaguers that you absolutely deem untouchable? There are a couple that I would really hate to give up, but I think for a player like that, on a contract like that, I would have to think long and hard, and I probably would pull the trade. Nobody on the major league roster, from the minor leagues, I don't think I would label anyone as untouchable. It depends. If you're telling me I have to give up 4 or 5 people from the minors, if I'm giving up that many prospects, there are going to be some untouchable prospects. I'm not going to give up our top 5 prospects, for example. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, Met fans, let's go Mets.